Hey everyone, Goutham here. Welcome to a session on page service and dataability. So in this session, we will have a general overview of ability, its types and templates. Later, we will move on to page ability and ability slice. So its life cycle and callbacks and how to navigate between ability slices. So then we will see how to design a long-running background task using service ability. Finally, we will look at how to access data on the device using dataability. Beginning ability overview. The ability class is the starting point for every Harmony OS applications. So this I have repeated in the previous sessions also. As you can see, when the Deveco Studio creates this project for you, it will create the main ability for you. So this will be the starting point for your application, where ability will be creating a window for you. So you can consider an ability similar to activity in Android. If you have programmed Android, so there is something called activity, which is very similar to ability. Okay. So Harmony OS offers now two types of abilities called feature ability and particle ability. The difference between them is that feature ability has UI and particle ability does not has UI. Particle ability will be used to design long-running service and data ability tasks. So we have seen here, right? The last two will be the particle abilities. Page ability will be the feature ability. So these two abilities use 3 templates in total. So those 3 templates were page template, then service template, and then data template. So as I said already, feature ability has UI. It only uses the page template. Particle ability uses 2 templates, the service and the data templates. So I'll show you in code how to set these templates and what does they mean. Okay. So as I told, the feature ability represents an ability with UI, and it is designed to interact with the users. So page template is the only template used by feature abilities. It is used to provide the capability of interacting with users. The UI is presented through ability slicer. Page ability takes care of creating a window for you in which you can place your UI using this API, set UI content. We have already seen this. We can use this set UI content to directly load XML if it is a single screen application, or we can place ability slice on top of it. So an ability can hold multiple ability slices. This we will see later. So we have completed an overview about feature ability. Now we'll look into the particle ability. So particle ability uses these 2 templates, service and a data template. And as you by the terminology only you can understand, the service is used for running long running background tasks, and it will not have any UI. So it is used to develop services that always runs in background, like the music player service. So you might have seen the music player applications, right? So you can play the song, you can minimize the application, but still you can see the music will be playing and you can see in the notification, right? So we can use service for such kind of applications. Even location services and other system services make use of the service template. Similarly, all the data related operations, for example, making use of database to insert or retrieve data from the database, or you want to access some of the media from device, all those comes under terminology data. So to perform these operations, you have to use data template. So right now I will show you how to create one. So before, when you create a ability in your application, so you have to provide the ability specific configuration in the config.json file, right? So suppose your this main ability is a like a user interface ability, so which will be using page template. So in your config.json under ability section, so where I have defined the configuration for main ability, you can see I have defined the template as page. Okay. So I also have a music service which will also extend ability. Okay. So under ability section only, I have this music service configuration where I have defined the template as service. So this is mandatory. So depending upon which type of template you are using, you have to specify the type in your ability configuration first. So the page template is the only template a feature abilities can use, which you have seen. So it is used to provide capability of interacting with users. A page ability may contain one ability slice or multiple ability slices. For example, this we have already seen. Yeah, consider a page ability for a news browsing application. It will contain two ability slices, one for displaying the news list and the other for showing the news details. Suppose you are designing for a mobile, this newsreader application, you will have single ability, but you will have two different ability slices. One will be the news list slice, the other one will be news details slice. So when you click on any individual news item, it will take you to the news details slice, right? But here we are using two slices, but single ability. Okay, so I mean to say, page ability can contain one ability slice or multiple slices. Okay. So suppose you are designing for a tablet, you will design something like this. Same case, same single ability, but there are two slices which are presented at the same time, at the same instant. So when you click on any of the news item, you will show the news detail here. So this figure shows the relationship between the page ability and the ability slices. So you consider the tablet scenario where it will have a single ability at the back, where it will hold two ability slices. So when you are designing for phone, in this scenario, so you need to navigate. So when you click any news item, you need to navigate to this slice. Now we will see that part, how to navigate between ability slices. So setting routes. So when a page ability appears in the foreground, when you launch your application, when ability appears, it presents one of its slice by default using this API, set main route. So this default create a template you see. So the main ability will use this same set main route API and present. This is the default slice of this main ability slice, where we are creating the UI for this main ability, right? So if you want to display another slice, there are two different ways. You can display the new slice. Once again. So either you can use the present API provided or you can use this add action route. I will tell you the difference. Suppose I have the second ability slice within the same application package. I can simply go for this present API. Okay. So on click of a button, what I am doing, I am just creating the target ability instance with a new intent. So that simple, you can navigate to that slice. So I'll try to run this application on a simulator and I'll show you. So what I'm trying to do here is I have a main ability which holds a slice on top of it, main ability slice, which has 4 buttons. For now, we will see the first button, which will take you to the next slice. So now I am going to second ability slice. On click of this, go to second slice button. So in the second ability slice, what I did, I have created a different layout with a light gray as background. You can see. So now I am in second ability slice. I'm going back to the main ability slice now. So by the simpler way, you can be able to navigate between ability slices. The second way would be, suppose there will be scenarios you want to navigate between different packages or different applications. Suppose here I have created a library which is a different package only. So where I have a slice, I want to navigate to this slice from this application. Okay, so in this case, I'll go for the second option, which I have shown you, add action route. So if a slice has to appear, it needs to have a parent ability, right? So here you have to register that add action route. What this API actually says, whoever asks for this action, just navigate them here to this third ability slice. This is what this library ability says. Okay, and one important thing, when you add this action route, you need to mention this action route in config.json also. You can see in the abilities, in this library ability section, I have added this action. Okay, so if whoever wants to go to this third ability slice, they should use this action. Now, from my main ability slice, and click of this second button, go to third slice. I'll be going to a completely different package. Okay, so here, so in order to go to that, you will not be using this present anymore. Instead, we have to call a start ability. Before that, we have to make use of this operation API provided by OS framework. So you will construct this using an operation builder, and you have to add this with action, and you have to specify that specific action. Okay, no need of specifying any bundle name or the target ability slice name. If you just give the action, that would be more than enough. Okay, and finally you are asking to start the ability. So now in this third ability slice, I have created similar different layout with yellow background. So I am able to navigate between different packages, right? So now you might have understood the difference between these two navigation APIs. Okay, same which I have explained to you. So one important thing, when you present an action in the add action route, you have to configure them in the config.json also, this action. So page ability lifecycle states. So every ability and ability slice you are using will have their own lifecycle states, and they will provide some callbacks where you have to write code. Okay, so when you start the application, when the ability pops up, so it goes through these lifecycle states, and in each lifecycle state it will give us some callback where we write our code. You see here, so an ability has 4 lifecycle states: initial, inactive, active, and background. Initial state is that when you launch the application, right, the first time an ability loads, it will not have any UI. It will just initialize its APIs, whatever API it has provided, right, for ability. It will be loaded into memory, but it won't have any UI. It's not running. It's in the initial state. So at the end of the initial state, it will have a callback on start. So we will have, see, when you see, this is common for both ability and ability slices. So we will get this on start callback. So which means ability slice will ask us to load the UI, where we will either load the UI from XML or from Java, right? So once we load the UI here in this callback, so it will go to inactive state. Right? In the inactive state, ability might have been loaded and executed UI, but it will not be interactive, which means it is in the process of loading. So whatever UI we have provided, right, it has to inflate. It will be inflating all the components and the component containers which you have provided, okay, in this state. And when it is going to complete this inactive state, it will give us a callback on active. So which means to say, I loaded every UI which you have provided, and now you can interact with your components. Okay. So normally these click listeners, we have to write inside this on active callback. Once this UI is getting loaded, we have to write inside this on active callback. You can see here, the ability is now visible and interactive. It is considered that the ability has focus. Okay, you can start interacting with your ability. You can perform your operations. You can make network calls, or you can do some disk operations. Whatever you want to do, you can do. Similarly, when I switch between different ability slices, right? For example, from the news list to news details, this ability will go in background, and that ability will come to foreground, right? The second ability will come to foreground. So that time, the first ability will go into inactive state, and you will get on inactive callback. Okay. So if it is if the visibility is completely lost, right, on background will get called. So we have to like a cache all the necessary objects here. Similarly, if I come back from second to first, again from the background state, you will get on foreground callback and it will come to inactive state. It will load the UI. Finally, it will become active again. So any doubts here? Okay, I keep no. So let me explain you this life cycle through logs. What happens when we perform different operations? So for now, you see.
Gautam, there is a query from Rohan. Just to explain the last part again.
Okay. Okay, sir. So this I'll explain you with the simulator app running so that it will be very clear for you. Which means, so you have two ability slices, right? And the first slice and second slice.
One second, Rohan, I'll unmute you. You can ask the question directly. Rohan, you should be able to unmute now. You can ask.
Sir, I was asking that you just said that means that last part you said visibility was is completely lost, and again the on foreground call, that part only. Can you explain please again?
Yeah, I'll explain you that. You see here. Now we have this remote device. We are in the first slice right now, right? Main ability slice, right? Yeah, so I'll start this application from the beginning. So what I did right now in code, I'll explain you first. So I have put logs in all the callbacks. In onStart, I have printed onStart. Similarly, when application comes to foreground, I have printed foreground. Similarly, for all callbacks, I have printed the respective names. Okay. So let me start the application. You see now when the ability loads, when it was in inactive state, it has given us on start callback where we have supplied the UI. Okay, and finally it became active. Okay, so till here no problem, right? Till active state. Now the application is active. It's in active state. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to go to the second ability by pressing one of the buttons. So what happens? This first ability will become completely invisible, right? Because the second ability comes on top, comes to foreground. So that time you will get on inactive callbacks and on background callbacks. So in these cases, right? So suppose you have some sensitive data in your application. So which will be lost, you feel which will be lost. Okay. So you can start caching those data in these callbacks so that when this ability resumes, you can display those cache data again. So for now, I'm going to second slice now. See what happened. The first main ability slice has gone to background. We have got this on background triggered. So you have to cache your sensitive data here. Okay, now I am going back to main ability slice. What happens? Now again my application came to foreground and it is active. As shown in this life cycle, it comes to foreground and it is active. Now we can show those cache data. If sensitive data, you can show that. Is that clear, Rohan?
Yeah, he said it's clear.
Okay. So similarly, so when you minimize your application, so it goes to inactive state and the application went to background. Now I am resuming the application now by clicking this icon. You will be able to resume your application, right? So now application came to foreground and finally it reached the active state. So these are the life cycle callbacks of ability slice. So an ability slice life cycle is bound to the ability that hosts it. Okay, which means this main ability slice life cycle will be say bound to the page ability, this main ability that hosts that main ability slice. Okay, An ability slice will have same lifecycle states and lifecycle callbacks as its host page ability. In our case, main ability slice will have same callbacks and states to main ability. Once the lifecycle state of the page ability changes, its ability slice undergoes the same change. Okay. So an ability slice can have its own lifecycle changes also. That will happen only when you switch between different ability slices, because the page ability will remain in the same state, right? It will be an active state, main ability. So when I switch between main ability slice to second ability slice, main ability will always be active because it is hosting both the slices, right? In that case, it will have independent lifecycle changes. Okay. So ability slices are used to present the actual user interface. By now, you know, you have to use this API to either set the UI via Java or via XML. So, and you have to set the UI on start. This also we have understood. So that's all about page ability. Now we'll move to serviceability. Serviceability is used to run long-running tasks in background. So like a music player or something which downloads the files without user notice. So these kind of tasks you can use as serviceability. So these serviceabilities can remain in foreground, background, even after the user switches to another application. Suppose you launched your application, you have started your serviceability. You can even kill your application or minimize your application, which will not kill that service. You can start browsing another application, even though music will be playing, right? You can browse different apps, still your music will be playing. That is done with the help of serviceability. Serviceability has only one instance on the device, and multiple abilities can share and connect to it. Okay. So suppose there is one serviceability, there will be n number of clients. You consider this scenario. Now I have 3 clients for this one service. Till this serviceability lives till last client lives. Okay. So this serviceability will be destroyed only after all the clients connect to it have been destroyed. Okay. Once the last client disconnects, this service will get destroyed. Serviceability runs in the main thread, UI thread. Therefore, if you are doing some time-consuming operation like disk IO or network operations or some hectic operations, you must create another worker thread in serviceability to prevent the UI thread from being blocked and application from not responding. These are basic concepts of serviceability. So in order to use serviceability, you have to extend the ability class, and you have to override the following serviceability related lifecycle callbacks. So these are the ones which I have highlighted: on start, on command, on connect, on disconnect, and on stop. These were the service related lifecycle callbacks. So this on start, like serviceability, like page ability, it will be invoked only once in the entire life cycle of the serviceability. For example, here on click of the start service button, this is the start service button click event. I'll use the same method called start ability, provided by ability, but the bundle name and ability name will be the service which I have created. So the start ability will start the service. When you start this service, right, what happens? This on start will get called, and this on start will get called only once. Suppose the second client connects to the same service by using the same API start ability, on start will not get called. Instead, on command will get called. Yes, on command. So only for once this will get called. Suppose there are 5 clients, only once this will get called. For rest 4 times this on command will get called. You can also connect to a service ability using on connect instead of start ability, not on connect, connect ability. This callback, once a client connects to this service, this on connect callback will get triggered. For you to understand, I have created a music service. I have extended ability like I told, and I have overridden all the callbacks which I have mentioned: on start, on command, on connect, on disconnect, and on stop. These are all the compulsory lifecycle callbacks which you have to override when you are creating a serviceability. So when a client connects to this serviceability, this on connect will get called and it will return an iRemote object, and you have to use this object for future communications with this service. Okay. So when a client disconnects from a service, on disconnect will get triggered. Finally, if there is no client bound to this service, or if the service is getting destroyed by the OS, so in some scenarios it will happen. That time this on stop callback will get triggered. So you should override this callback to clear the intensive resources, such as you might have created a lot of threads, you might have created some listeners. You have to remove reference to all those objects. Okay. This is overview about service lifecycle. So as told earlier, in the ability configuration, you have to make the type as a service. See, for a music service, I have made the template as service. And here I will explain you what I have did. So I have kept a media file here in media directory in resources test wave. I have created a music player instance, and I am loading this a wave file, and I am playing it in this service in background. So for now, since this is emulator, I will not be able to hear the sound. I'll show the demo at last. So starting a service, starting and stopping, you will see how to start and stop a service. So the ability class provides, as I told, ability provides this interface start ability method for you to start another ability. You can pass an intent to this method to start a service. To set information about that service ability, you can first construct this operation object, like I told, right, device ID. So suppose in HarmonyWise, you know, right, the distributed architecture, we will be able to connect multiple devices at the same time. Suppose from my phone, if I want to start a service on a remote device, right, I have to use this device ID parameter, which where I will be specifying the remote device ID. So if there is no remote device connected, we can leave it empty like this. Then the bundle name where the service is located and the service name, ability name, which you have to specify. Finally, you have to call the start ability. So on click of that start service button, I am doing the same. I'm creating an intent. I'm creating an operation object with the device ID empty because the service is located in my phone only. With the bundle name, I'm getting the bundle name of my current application. With ability name, this music service name I have specified. Finally, I am starting it. So after the preceding code, that intent code is executed, the start ability method is called to start the service ability. If the service ability is not running, so you are going to start it for the first time, the system invokes on start, like I told, and then invokes on command. So if a second client, for example, you consider a service is already started and running, if a second client tries to connect, then directly on command will get executed. So if you want to stop a service ability, either you can call terminate ability within that music service only at specific point of time, wherever you want to stop. Here you will have for example, here I can say terminate ability. It will automatically kill itself. Or you can call a stop ability from another ability. For example, here I have a stop service button. So where I am calling that stop ability method with the same information, intent information. So normally, till now, whatever we have seen, right, it will create a background service. Okay, generally, these background services priority will be low. What do you mean by priority? In the sense, so when the system runs on low resources, right, the OS will be able to kill it easily. Okay, So it may reclaim resources from the service abilities running in the background. So for example, if you design a music player application and you are designing it as a background application, right? So if your phone is running out of memory, okay, so the OS may kill your service. Okay, so when designing music applications, this criteria should be avoided. Okay, it should be a so in order to make a service on high priority and make it last longing to run forever, you have to design it as a foreground service. Okay, so it's a very simple step to make a background service as a foreground service. You have to call this API, keep background running on the service itself with the notification request object. So in the notification, you can show your music player or whatever messages saying that this is a foreground service and this will be keep running. It will not be killed by the system. And you have to mention this permission in the config.json. Also, you have to specify the background mode. For example, again, so I have designed a music player service, right? If you look at the configuration config.json, I have defined this permission that this service will be a background running service. And I have mentioned the background mode. There are different modes. Since it's an audio player application, I have mentioned the audio playback. So these are the all possible modes. Like a location service, it may be a data transfer service or something from this list. You can mention the specific background mode of this service. So I have made this background service as a foreground service by using this keep background running API. In on command, I am making this create a foreground notification method where I have created a notification request object. And finally, I am calling this API. As you can see, currently there is no. One second. These are all some other system notifications. I have removed all unnecessary notifications right now. Okay, so there is no service running notification. Now when I click start service, service is started and music is playing. I have tested it on the device, but since it is emulator, you can see there is one more new notification, entry main ability, saying music player is playing. So when I click stop service, I have killed that service. Since I am the only client, I was able to stop that service. I'll share this code with you for reference. So I have shown you this part. So we are creating a notification request object and finally calling this object on this API, keep background running API. In config.json, added following configuration, background modes. So that's all about serviceability. Regarding dataability, I am going to give a very brief introduction to dataability today, because this dataability deals with the database operations, which will be covered in depth by Meghna in an upcoming session. So today I'll give just an overview and I'll show you how to access a file from a device using URI. Okay. So dataability helps applications to access data stored by the same application or other applications, and also provide methods for sharing data also. So data can either be stored in database or on disk. Okay. So dataabilities provide some methods for database operation and opening files. So you all might have heard of URI, which means a uniform resource identifier. For example, if you have a photo captured on your camera, it will get stored on the device disk, right? So every data which is stored on the device will have a uniform resource identifier. So you can research on this topic. You will learn more about this. So say URI is used to identify a specific data item on the device, such as it may be a table in a database or maybe a file on the disk. Like I told, it may be an image also. It may be some other thing. So URI is used in HarmonyOS also, complying with commonly used URI standards. So normally how an URI will look, you can see the URI scheme. It will have a scheme name. Okay. Then it will have a device ID. Like I told, this device ID represents either it's a local device or remote device. Then actual path of that resource and some query parameters. So example URI will look like this. If you are trying to communicate with a remote device, cross device, you will give device ID here. Scheme will be data ability. This will be the resource data and some query parameters. If it is a local, it will look like this. So now I will show you how to access a data using URI, using data ability helper class. So we can use the data ability helper class provided by framework to access the shared data provided by your application or other applications. So this is just a client to retrieve data. So before using this API, you have to declare required permissions in the config.json file if you want to access data. So if you are going to read some data from the disk, right, or write some operations on the disk, the bottom two permissions are mandatory. You all might be aware of this: read user storage and write user storage. And in the required permissions, you see the first brace where which is the source of data which you are going to access. That also you have to mention here. So first you have to create a data ability helper instance like this using this creator API. Data ability helper itself has this creator API where you have to pass the context object, and you can call the open file API using that URI, and the mode, whether you want to just read it or you want to write something, and are also the different modes you see: read and write, overwrite, append to existing data, and read, overwrite and read. Okay, so we have created this helper instance, right? Finally, using that helper instance, we are calling open file using some URI. Okay, suppose you know the exact URI of the image, right? You have to pass it here. With read mode, I'll be able to, this will return a file descriptor object. So using file input stream, we have to access that file descriptor object to show the image in your application. This is how we will access a file using a URI.